Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing? Welcome back to another episode of Audio Commentary. My name is Matt Jarbo, and today we're going to be talking about How to Train Your Dragon live action remake, adaptation, reboot, whatever you want to call it, from 2025. This is a movie I will fully admit, when I first heard back in 2023 that they were making it, I went, oh, really? Why? Why? The trilogy is amazing. Because I saw the first How to Train Your Dragon at the midnight release back in 2010. Like I had just moved to LA. I was back in San Diego for my birthday. It came out on my birthday in 2010 when I turned 28. And my girlfriend and I, with whom I'm still with, and we took our kids to go see this movie, by the way. We went to the midnight show and we ended up seeing it in 3D because they accidentally gave us the 3D glasses. And I have to say, DreamWorks was cooking that year. You had How to Train Your Dragon, you had Shrek Forever After, and you had Megamind. I mean, all three are just like classics. You know what I'm saying? But How to Train Your Dragon was in a whole other league compared to the other two, despite my absolute adoration of Shrek Forever After. But that movie was just, it set the bar, I think, for just like cinematic, character-driven, fantasy-based animation that we hadn't seen out of Disney in a while. It really set itself apart from anything Pixar was doing. And this was only like a few months away, or a few months before Toy Story 3 came out. And Toy Story 3, make no mistake, is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. But then again, so is How to Train Your Dragon. And the sequels, well, I don't think as good as the original, are still quite good. And I do plan on talking about all three of those. But this was one that I was like, okay, all right, we'll see how it goes. And it just so happened that, you have Cheap Ticket Tuesday. And the movie was playing literally 20 minutes after my children got out of school on their last day of school. So I bought us tickets and we surprised the girls and we took them down there. We got them popcorn. Start watching this movie. Now, the thing you got to know about this film, if you don't know already, but the thing you have to know about this movie is that Dean DeBlois, or DeBlois, if I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. The man who directed the original trilogy of animated films came on to direct this movie, provided that they give him full creative control, which they did, which works because this $150 million budgeted movie, never mind its marketing budget, has pulled in $364 million in just 2 weeks worldwide. It's a glorified hit. I don't think it's going to hit $1 billion necessarily, but I think it is going to open the door for them to do 2 and 3 or maybe some other form of movie. Even though I think that even with the sequels as we know them, I don't know if I think that the live action version needs a sequel, like directly in line with that. Like I you know what I'm saying? It's like, I think they could go back and fix whatever problems they might have, if that makes any sense. But anyway, so Dean comes in, directs this movie, and you know what? The trailer comes out and you watch the trailer and you're like, man, this looks just like the animated film. And then you go, oh, it's directed by the same guy who did the animated film. So that's why the DNA feels so similar. So now you're watching the movie. And I'll tell you, the first 15, 20 minutes of this movie were kind of hard to get into because it was so similar. Like we're talking almost shot for shot, beat for beat, dialogue for dialogue from the original. It was so trying to be what came before 15 years ago that it kind of took a little bit away from what it was establishing. Now, as the movie went on and as Mason Thames started to win me over as Hiccup, okay, because I liked Jay Baruchel quite a bit in the original, and as Nico Parker started to win me over as Astrid, because I liked America Ferrera in the original as well, we do get a bit of, you start to see where the differences lie. You start to see where they're making it their own. And the great thing about that, legitimately the great thing about that, is as they're making it their own, it feels natural. At no point does it feel forced. And that actually really made me happy. So I'm watching this thing and I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, in my brain, I know that the animated movie exists. I've watched it multiple times. But then I'm looking at my daughters. And my daughters, they haven't seen, they're 5 and they're 7. Like, they just haven't really seen that because, like, we don't have Peacock, so we don't have all of the, the DreamWorks movies on there. Or they might be on Netflix, I'm not too sure. But we've just never really shown them How to Train Your Dragon. And this was kind of one of those like spur of the moment, surprise things. And they were really into it. My eldest daughter is aware of the franchise, but she hasn't seen it. My youngest has no knowledge. So this was their first real engagement with these movies, with this particular story. And they loved it. And I really liked it too. And I think one of the reasons why it works as well as it does is because, for one, you've got, Gerard Butler back as Stoic, which really does help because you get the same kind of vibe. While you don't have, I forget who voiced Gobber. I think that was that one God, what's his name? It's Craig Ferguson, right? Nick Frost did a really good job, although it was a little bit different. And there's as quick aside, I saw this thing with like Nick Frost talking about how like Gobber was gay, and I read about that before I saw the movie, and I was kind of wondering if they were going to like put any of that in there. And there wasn't any reference to it. Like there wasn't any scene where he's like longingly looking at somebody or anything else. Like there was nothing there. So it's like one of those weird things. It's like, okay, in your mind, you think that he's okay, whatever, man, whatever. It caught me as odd whenever actors do that. And that's like, like their method for playing the character, like their unsung or unknown approach to how they play the characters is interesting to me. This was one that kind of caught me off guard. Doesn't change anything. Again, no issue. It just one of those things I just kind of felt kind of weird to just kind of say in an interview that have it not be reflected at all. I mean, look, go back to 2017's Beauty and the Beast, right? When the movie was banned in Russia because you had like LeFou and this other guy looking at each other kind of flirty towards the end of the movie. And Russia was all like, niet, right? They didn't want to do nothing with that, right? So it's like this, nothing to do with that. Anyway, I'm bringing it up because I just read about it before seeing the film. And it was on my mind as I'm watching it, because this is what marketing does this, right? You watch things, you hear things, and then you get the behind the scenes stuff. And sometimes that can pop up in your head when you're watching a movie, because now that you are aware of it, you're kind of actively looking for it. Not in a negative, just looking to see if there's any kind of confirmation, which there wasn't. Anyway, I'm moving on. But let me say what I think was really like the key thing that sold this movie, outside of the chemistry between Mason Thames and Nico Parker, of which there was quite a bit. They nailed Toothless. And they nailed Toothless by not changing the design from the original animated films, right? They didn't change anything. Toothless looked like Toothless. And I've seen some concept art of what Toothless could have looked like in the live action. And it looked like a horrifying, creature from like the deep version of Toothless. And it would have been scary for kids. And I think that while the other dragons definitely had their own little differences from the original, they could not do that with Toothless. It had to look the same, because you have to hit that familiarity. You have to hit that nostalgia. Like when you're doing a reboot, if you're changing things to change them, you are going to run into trouble. And they didn't do that here. And you got a really compelling story. You got a really compelling visual feast to look at. Not always perfect. Some of the times it felt like, Bill Pope shot the movie, and he's been working, in Hollywood for a long time. The fact the very first movie that he was the DP on was Darkman, directed by Sam Raimi. He also did Army of Darkness, Fire in the Sky, Clueless from 1995, Gridlocked, Zero Effect, The Matrix Reloaded, The Matrix Revolutions, Team America World Police, if you want to know about that one, right? Like he recently just did Y2K, which I thought was awesome. And the Jerry Seinfeld movie Unfrosted. This guy has worked quite a bit. Oh, and Alita Battle Angel too. So he's done a lot of work, and I don't think that he shoots terribly at all, but some of this kind of felt a little bit like it was a little muted at times, right? And I think this is where the animated movie does it better. Obviously, they're Vikings and they're on this island, and it's going to be, drab, and it's going to be overcast, and it's going to have all that kind of stuff. Where the animated film can kind of play with it a bit more and give it to you a little bit more in a way that's like going to be, more of an appealing visual aesthetic. Here, it just kind of felt like at times beige, and a lot of movies these days are kind of doing that. Lilo and Stitch was kind of similar. The way that they shot that movie was like, it doesn't have that good of a look to it, I guess, if that makes any sense. You know what I'm saying? Fine movie, fun movie, but there are visual styles here that just did not seem to match up. And that's my complaint with the visuals. But again, like, you're so invested in the story, right? Because look, and I mentioned, and then I said, Lilo and Stitch, and well, Dean DeBlois here, he directed original Lilo and Stitch alongside Chris Sanders, and then did the How to Train Your Dragon and 2 and 3, and then he did the movie. So quite literally for the past 15 years, outside of one little, short film called Go, this is what the guy's done, and everything else. And I feel like, you know what, good for him, right? Good for him. He's been able to kind of make this his world, and he's learned, and he's done really well. And I think it really kind of made the movie, better. It's like you're watching a remake from the, the creator of the original, in the sense of it was based on a book, so it's not like it was anything else. Anyway, I'm kind of losing the plot here a little bit, I'll fully admit. To kind of wrap this thing up, I feel like How to Train Your Dragon was just a really fun movie. It hit all the points it needed to hit. It had a lot of heart behind it, had good characters. You would like to see more from these characters. I was a little surprised that Jay Baruchel and America Ferrera didn't have a cameo in this. I understand why, but you almost want to kind of throw back a little bit to the original. But at the same time, I'm kind of glad that they didn't. I'm kind of glad that they didn't just like throw out the member berries, because it doesn't need it. The story itself is good based on the original, novel. The original animated movie was good. The sequels were good. The show was good. And now people get this, and that's okay. But if I'm being honest, I don't know necessarily if I would, let's say, go back to the live action movie above the original. And I say that simply because how good the originals were. And even though this is good in its own right, I don't see people flocking back to this as often as they will on the other, unless they really are all about the Astrid and Hiccup relationship, because those two people brought, they brought it, and they made it work. And so I think that could be something that is the endearing legacy of this movie, of this franchise, and what they do. But that's just, of course, my opinion. I really want to know your guys' thoughts on this. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you again for listening to this episode of Podio Commentary. If you have a recommendation for a movie for me to watch, please let me know. And be sure to like and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you again. Have yourself a great day, and peace out.